Okay, for this video, I want to break down a little bit about how to type people. Now, I'm not going on any notes, so it's not going to be as smooth and as kind of pre-done as some of my other videos are. For a lot of reasons, I'm not going on notes. I just want to have kind of a conversation with this. And so how do you type people? Now, there's a lot of ways to type people, a lot of different patterns and things to do. But what I really want to talk about is several main areas where you can type. And that is finding the temperament, whether someone is an EJ, IJ, IP, or EP, and then the middle two letters, the communication style. Now, there's much more into finding someone's personality through objective personality than just those main four letters, so to speak. But if you can concentrate on those two sections when you're typing someone, you really will have enough information to finally understand the person, which is why I'm into typology in the first place, to understand people, why they do the things they do, and why they say the things they say, and how you can better relationships with them and interact with them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to find those first and fourth letter of their type, what that means, and then the middle two letters, which is their communication style. So objective personality uses the Myers-Briggs lettering. So an ESTJ, for instance, or an ENFP, for instance, but they don't have the same meaning. In fact, that last letter, the J and the P, has no relevance at all with the distinction in the personality. It's just there to let people familiar with typology wrap their minds around it. So the J and the P means nothing. So then how do you find the temperament? Well, we're calling some people EJs and IJs and EPs and IPs. So when you're typing someone, one of the main clues to look for, and this might take a few minutes, it might take hours, days, weeks, depending on how the person gives that away. With typing with someone's personality, it will give certain things away easier. Other things will be harder to find, but the more you watch of someone, the more you interact with someone, the more you're around someone, the better you'll know that. So the very first thing is to decide if they are an observer or a decider. If they are deciders, they are what we call an EJ or an IP. If they're an observer, they are an EP or an IJ. And so the deciders, the EJs, the IPs, what will be one of their biggest issues and what they will talk about and what they will rant about. This is a key. When someone really is not just talking at a baseline, they're not just talking calmly, they start ranting and they start being irritated about certain things. If they're irritated with people issues like this person and my mother and this coworker and my sister and my wife and all these people and this person and that person and can you believe this senator or this president and people like that, if they are constantly always ranting about people and you see this over time, then they are a decider. They're EJ or an IP. And then you've cut half the board off right there. Now, if they're not ranting about people, they will be ranting about control chaos issues, which are things. Now, as a decider, it's a little harder for me to see when they're doing that. It's very easy for me to see when people are ranting about people, but when they're ranting about other things, sometimes I don't realize they're ranting about other things until I realize they're not ranting about people. So things like being concerned with traffic or cars or being stuck somewhere, or the traffic is driving me crazy, or this computer is driving me crazy, or I don't want to have to drive to this place or go to this area, or it could be anything. So it's hard to give examples because it literally could be any control chaos system. But the key to know is they're not ranting against people. They might be ranting against an organization where a person's a part of, and they might talk about that person. But over time, what are they fearing? What are they scared about? They're scared about a control chaos issue, whether it's a dirty room, a clean house, not being able to have the freedom to do this or to do that, or not being told what they have to do, or they don't like having to, let's say, take an online test on a computer because the monitor locks them down, it freaks them out, things like that. They would be an EP or they would be an IJ. And so right then, from the beginning, you can see which temperament they would be. And then there's also the middle two letters. And the middle two letters are SF, ST, NF, and NT. And this is all about their communication style. And again, this takes a while to learn this. And it takes a while to learn it. And really, the easiest ones, I think, are the ST style and the NF style to understand. The ST style is going to be extremely clear. If you're listening to somebody talk and you always know pretty much what they're talking about, and they're very clear and it's very easy to understand what they're saying, they're probably an S, and there's a good chance that they are a T. And so you can see that over time. I'm an ST, and for the most part, I'm easy to understand. I don't have to work hard on being clear. I'm also a lead blast, so that makes it even easier for me to communicate. Although I still have to work at it, and there's times I can't think about what I want to say and that kind of thing. But an ST is very clear, sometimes even robotic in their communication and the words they use. So an ST would say, for instance, the frog jumped over the road, or the frog crossed the street. Now, an SF would say, the beautiful green frog jumped across the cute street. They would report what happened, but they would give some value to it. Well, the frog was precious. The frog was beautiful. And if they're talking about that all the time, then that's more of an SF. An NT would describe in detail, many times, what happened when this green frog crossed the street. Maybe they would say what type of genus species the frog is, or they would give some context as to where the frog was beforehand. Well, the frog originated in the woods. It came up to the street, and then it crossed the street, and then it did this, and it crossed at this rate, and it gets very scientific. It's a lot of information and context you really don't need to know. There's not a lot of value in there. It's just more information that maybe you need to know. And so the NT comes across very nerdy, very book smart, and the NT would describe the green frog jumping across the street, and then they would get distracted talking about the green frog. Maybe they would talk about what type of frog it was, where it originates from, and then where it's going to have its mating habits and things like that. That would be NT speaking, for lack of a very rational, generalistic explanation. And then NF, quite honestly, you would have no idea what they were saying, because what they would say is they would say that the green frog is crossing the street, and as they're talking about the green frog crossing the street, they might talk about some other thought that they had, or they might go into some beautiful explanation of a frog or the street, or they may end up talking about where they grew up, or they don't give you a bunch of context like the NT, but then they put a lot of value in other things that doesn't quite make sense or have anything to do with sometimes that situation of the frog crossing the street. Now, you have to be careful, because if someone has a blast, which is teaching, if they have that last, or if they have play toward the end, it might confuse energy animals with communication style, and that just takes a long time to understand. But the less confusing it is, the more S it is, and the more T, and the more confusing it is, the more N, and the more F it would be. So hopefully that helps as you start typing to people. Now, what type of F, what type of S, and all these letters, that's more in depth, but at least get you in the ballpark when you're first learning how to type people.